Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. Today, I wanted to go over a particular topic, and it is how to bond, connect, and build love with the avoidant through their tests. So, this was requested. And I will say that if a partner tests you, it's pretty unfortunate. It does mean that they're typically pretty wounded. Actually, most insecure individuals do test their partner, whether they realize it or not. Avoidant individuals, they tend to test subconsciously. They don't realize they're doing it. Like, they really don't. Usually it takes a lot of effort, even for a therapist, a lot of rapport building and exploration of their mind for them to even recognize that this is what they're doing subconsciously. Even though I think individuals who are more self-aware, partners of their avoidant, even avoidants who are more self-aware or licensed professionals, it can be a little obvious that these are in fact tests, but they just don't recognize that's what it is. I work with a lot of individuals with attachment wounds. I work with a lot of avoidants. I am a practicing therapist, and I see a lot of this happening when I'm practicing. So I wanted to share it with you. So today we're going to explore some techniques of how to respond when an individual is giving a particular test. There are so many tests, unfortunately, but we're just going to cover a little bit of them. And if you guys want more, I can make more. There is just so many tests. There is truly so many tests, and they don't even know it. So if you're an avoidant, it might help you to at least understand why you're doing it. I'm not saying don't do it, because I understand it's part of it's a defense mechanism that you guys have, and you can't really just rip that away. It's not healthy. Typically, if you have a maladaptive approach to anything, you should replace it with something healthy. At least you should try. And so it's something that has to be done delicately, but it's just something. Building more self-awareness can really help your subconscious to kind of clean out some of these wounds, okay? So the first test is when an avoidant individual says, I don't want a relationship. This usually happens in the dating stage, whatever you guys call it. And this is tricky because some individuals do say this, and they do mean it. In avoidance, they mean it too, by the way. But what I'm saying is some people who are secure, somewhat secure, but they're maybe manipulative or they have a personality disorder, they may say this, but they're just stringing you along to use you. However, avoidant individuals, some of them might be doing it to use you. Avoidants are people, and some of them have different values, and some very much are doing this to manipulate you. But a lot of them are saying this to subconsciously test you to reduce the pressure of commitment, right? In case they fail. So basically, and I made a video on tests, and this one is in there, so you can look at that. Basically what it is when they say, I don't want a relationship, they don't want you to want them to want a relationship so that they can come to you on their own term, because they're preparing for you to pressure them. So they already think they're preemptively thinking, okay, my partner's going to pressure me. I'm just going to say I don't want a relationship, so they know and they're prepared in case I don't ever want it, or if I fail them. If I fail the relationship, at least I don't have to feel like I'm a failure, because that's one of their wounds as well. And I can come to this relationship on my own terms and on my own time. That's usually why they say it. So typically, one way that I notice when I'm practicing, this is typically, I think, what gives the most healthy results for, I guess, both people. I could be wrong, and I know this may be triggering. This is just what I see. Every individual is different, okay? So let's say an avoidant says, I don't want a relationship, okay? The responding partner might say, that's fair. I at least want to be exclusive. I'm not seeing anyone else or planning to. Are you seeing anyone else? Simple. And then open that dialogue to basically both you guys commit without having a label. Avoidance, the main trigger typically is actually the label. And what happens is oftentimes the relationship you have with an avoidant partner, it pretty much is a relationship. They just don't like the label of boyfriend, girlfriend. But most avoidants, especially male avoidants, men, they don't mind being exclusive. They don't. Sometimes they're very upfront and they literally are not seeing anyone else. In fact, they haven't been the entire time. A lot of I just thought of one case that I saw earlier this week. A lot of them will say something like, oh, of course I'm not seeing anyone else. I barely can handle this. Like literally, that's very blunt, but seriously, they say that. Or some of them actually might even say, oh, I'm not seeing anyone else and I don't think I ever want to. Like they emotionally commit very quickly typically, but they don't really want to admit it. And so what they do is they just don't have a label. That way they can feel like they have one foot out the door, even though they technically don't. But that's another bridge we'll have to cross on another video. But basically, the reality is you guys are probably in a relationship. They just don't want to accept that, and that's okay. Maybe I'm wrong. And, I'm not saying that it is a relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be. It's an exclusive situation, a romantic one that looks like a relationship. It's just not labeled as a relationship. Sometimes they're even okay calling it a relationship. They just don't want to use boyfriend and girlfriend yet. So that's usually the way to compromise. Saying somewhere down the line, just saying you want to be exclusive. And then as time goes on, a lot of times they will be more open to the actual label. Especially if you mention that you think that's something you want, they will probably shut you down. But if you want, I'm not telling you to stay with someone who mistreats you, by the way. If you're unhappy, go find another partner. It's fine. I'm just sharing this because, a lot of viewers want to know this, and that's why I'm sharing it. You would have to wait it out a little bit, unfortunately, until they're ready to put the label. But for your comfort, I want you to realize a lot of times if they say they're exclusive to you, they probably are, and that pretty much is a relationship. There's really not much different, okay? The next test, and I think I find this one a little silly, actually, because it's very obviously not true, at least from a therapist perspective. They'll say something like, I don't get attached to people. Okay, so that's the next test. And they're testing to see, will you still accept them for who they are? Because they're basically trying to say, I'm pretty cold and distant. Let's see if you can accept me, right? And a response to that, because you still want to connect with them, right? So here's the response to kind of help them adjust and for you to adjust as well. And you can say, I understand that. I do appreciate the time we spent together, and I will keep in mind what you said. Simple, non-reactive, not too overly reactive, right? And in there, you mentioned, I do appreciate the time we spend together, right? Because basically, we know your avoidant partner is likely attached to you. Sorry to call you out like that, avoidant individuals, but you guys actually get attached pretty easily once you like a partner, which is a good trait, by the way. It's a great trait. It's very endearing, but that's why you guys protect your heart, right? Because you guys get attached. You fall for people. You love them genuinely for who they are, not what they can give you. You're not looking for commitment. You're not looking for money. You're not looking for anything because you already have that. You guys are so independent. Actually, all you guys need is love. So yeah, you're going to guard your heart. I get that. But the truth of the matter is you guys get attached pretty easily once you do. And so when a partner kind of bridges that gap and says, I do appreciate the time we spend together, you can feel, okay, I'm appreciated, and they also accept me for who I am because I am a distant person. And so usually avoidance can feel better about that. Now, avoidant individuals tend to lack self-awareness. They literally may believe, typically they do, they strongly believe that they don't get attached. They don't always know that they get attached, but it's actually, unfortunately, another barrier, a defense mechanism. They tell themselves they don't get attached to guard their heart so they don't get hurt, right? I have many patients where for years they don't tell their partner they love them. And then when the trust is built, they tell their partner they love them very shortly after they want to get married. If they want to have kids, they'll have kids, whatever it is. And what happens is they start admitting, looking back, I think I loved her for a while. I just didn't realize it. Or I loved him for a while and I didn't realize it. That happens very frequently. You would be surprised at how often that happens when I'm practicing. It's very frequent. So why I'm saying this is it helps to build acceptance and it has a lack of pressure while still reinforcing closeness. You have to remember that avoidant individuals, they're uncomfortable with closeness and it has nothing to do with their partner. It is not personal. This is a wound they have. They are not trying to hurt you. Whether you believe this or not, a lot of avoidants do not like hurting people. Actually, they think they are so afraid to hurt people. Sometimes that's part of why they stay away from people because avoidant individuals, they get so much negativity. They don't like being a bad person. If you ask so many avoidant individuals, you can ask them. They say they don't like being a bad person. I'm afraid to hurt people. Sometimes I don't show my feelings or how I really feel. And sometimes they're not even honest for this reason, which is not the best reason, but it's true. Because they don't want to hurt people's feelings and they don't know why they're like this. This happened a long time ago in their childhood. These things happen even when they're an infant, these wounds. It's sad. And so it's really important to respect your partner and not be so, don't say hurtful things to them. It'll push them away. So that's the second test. When they say, I don't get too attached to people, mention that you understand them, that you appreciate the time you spent, and that you'll keep that in mind. And just don't react too much to it because they just want to know, will you accept that, okay? So the third one is, and I think this one is really interesting, and I see this a lot in my practice. I see this so often where an avoidant individual, well, it starts usually where, let's say one person's on a business trip, it doesn't matter who, and the person who is not avoidant mentions, do you miss me? They ask, right? Avoidant individuals say something very interesting. And there's variations of this, by the way. But typically what it is somehow along the lines, they may say, I don't get caught up in missing somebody. I do my own thing. Or I don't get stuck on it and, think all day and can't function. They have this perception of missing, which I think is like longing or lack of functioning, right? And so they typically will, when you say, do you miss me? They'll say something like, oh, I don't miss people. I do my own thing. I'm able to function. It's not like I get caught up in it. And usually how to cut through that defense mechanism and understand, because what they're doing is they're testing you. Will you react? Will you respect me for this way? Because they're basically saying, I don't know how to long for you. Will you still respect me? My miss is very limited. That's what they're actually trying to say. And you can say, I do understand. I don't mean that you're longing for me or you can't function. I just mean, do you feel my absence and will you be happy to see me again? Sometimes you need to add this part as well, the second part, which I'm about to say, depending on how reactive your avoidant individual is. If not, I won't be upset. I'm just asking to understand you, right? Because they want to be understood. And that's just really important. And especially if you're not going to be upset, if you really want this relationship to work, sometimes you have to make these types of sacrifices, okay? So I do hope that makes sense. Go ahead and subscribe, like, and I will see you in the next one.